The sentencing for the man convicted of traveling to his ex-girlfriend's house in Macomb and killing her significant other will have to wait a little longer. 25-year-old Dylan Lovato's defense attorney is challenging a firearm enhancement that would make the minimum sentence 45 years. WGEM's Dylan Smith was in the courtroom this afternoon.
Defense attorney Andrew Stuckert is arguing that the firearm enhancement is unconstitutional. A clinical psychologist testified this afternoon, claiming that his ability to problem solve and manage stress was hindered at a very early age due to alcohol consumption and cannabis addiction at just 12 years old. The psychologist said the ultimate result of that is the inability to regulate mood. His conclusions were strictly from an evaluation he conducted on Lovato this spring. So we could reach the 3-year mark since the shooting before Lovato is sentenced, which would be in March. He's due back in court in January when the judge should make a ruling. In Macomb, Dylan Smith, WGEM News.
Thank you, Dylan. Lovato faces 20 to 60 years behind bars, but the firearm enhancement would make it a minimum of 45 years.